Peasant Productions presents the math of ESP, why it works even if you don't believe in it. I'm going to kind of sidetrack slightly here, okay? I grew up sailing, and about 10 years of age, my stepfamily got a 42-foot trimaran, and I became involved in looking at the idea and talking to people who had literally sailed around the world. I started looking at the speeds and the stability of the trimaran design and what could be achieved with that, and started dreaming about being the world record holder of the fastest trimaran to sail around the world. That dream has never yet been fulfilled, but there is oh heck, I can't think of the name of them. There's a French company that has a trimaran that is currently the world record holder for the fastest sailboat in the world. Somewhere around 53 knots, I believe it is, a little over, or somewhere around 60 miles an hour or something like that. It's either 53 miles an hour or 53 knots. I would have to go back and look at it exactly. But needless to say, 53 miles an hour just using the wind is quite quick. You know, contemplate the America's Cup catamarans. Same thing. They are hydrofoil designs. In I guess it was probably about 75 or 76 that I was trying to build a small trimaran that I could go literally coast hopping from Los Angeles Harbor, where I grew up, all the way up as far up, you know, I mean, if I could have gone to Alaska, I probably would have. But I started building and designing a trimaran for that. And at that time, I started playing with the idea that as a solo sailor, it would be nice to have some sort of ballasting systems and stuff like that that could work out. And the hydrofoiling type of an effect to do this, rather than pulling water into chambers and then exhausting the chambers back out again to change weights and stuff. Anyway, I did a lot of studying of solo single-handed racing around the world, and one of the big things you have to remember there is that when you are one person, you are 1,000 miles from shore, which means you're kind of out of helicopter range. So the Coast Guard's not going to come and get you. And if you're off of Japan, or you're off of Vietnam, or you're off someplace other than your home country, they might not even care that you're out there floundering. Okay. Used to be nautical people. We easily agreed that, you know, if there was a ship in distress, we went and took care of it. Now with the countries bickering and fighting so much, you know, obviously you got boats full of refugees, and most American citizens would rather go and blow the snot out of those refugees in their boats than help them out of the country that we blew to pieces anyways with the United States bombs. Yeah. But the idea is quite simple, you know, something like this. See if I can pull this antenna up. There we go. This antenna comes up, you flip it up, it becomes activatable, and it puts out a distress signal that literally calls I think it's the United States Coast Guard or something like that. I'm not certain who this one goes to. I forget the exact who this one goes to, but it's a government one. It's not a private company, so I'm a little less concerned about them going out of business. So the U.S. government's about to collapse anyway. But anyways, this type of a device is equally viable out in space. Why? Because you can locate the person through it, yes. So if they're installed in ships, you got stuff, okay? Now, one of the things I want to point out, the reason why I'm bringing up how this little device talks to a satellite. It sends a beam up, it puts out, or no, I take that back, it picks up the GPS, and then it broadcasts a fairly wide area signal, not to a satellite, but something that would be picked up by some other receiving system, I believe. Anyway, the thing is that if you can make a rescue device this small, Imagine what you can do if you've got, this size by this, for an independent pack on a person's space suit, or in the ships, in the rats, in the space shuttles that are now space taxis and lunch wagons and work vehicles and tow trucks and you name it. They're doing all kinds of stuff. Somebody has a problem, they hit the button, they're picked up. Again, I talk about that whole entire internet system. You have something that is actually there. Somebody picks up the relays and people know. You might be out in space and you might still run out of air before somebody can get, a week out to wherever you're at or whatever. But hey, at least you've got something, okay? When I talked about the octopus, rat engines, and these things are out here, like my camera tripod here. This head comes off. I can change it very quickly. The camera comes off. I can change it very quickly. These legs and stuff can be, arranged, cleaned, dismantled, and taken care of. That's why I don't like Apple and Microsoft too well, because they're too busy trying to create a monopoly. The Apple iPhone, one of the biggest selling phones in the world right now, you cannot change the battery in it unless you have a soldering gun in your hand and you have the time to sit and you have that spare battery that fits in there. They don't sell you the battery. So you have to go out and find somebody that makes a battery that is similar in size and output to put in. Interesting, isn't it? Somebody argued me on Quora that there's no such thing as built-in obsolescence. If the electronic parts to that iPhone last longer than the battery does, obviously you have built-in obsolescence. If you can't just pop the phone open and pull the battery out, you have built-in obsolescence because you have to take it into somebody and service it. If you have an earthquake and you no longer have electricity and you can't change a battery, that iPhone's going to only work for a little while, and then, regardless of whether or not the cell towers are up, you're out of luck. Okay? The cell towers can be running on battery systems, and there's no power anywhere for you to plug into and recharge your iPhone, so you can't use it. You pick up some other, I don't know about BlackBerry, but I know my Samsung, I can change the battery in that in about a minute, and it takes another minute or two for me to log on to the internet and let it, cycle itself back up to the proper days and times and all that. Or I can physically go in and tell it what it needs to know. Very quick and simple. The Apple iPhone is obsolescence, okay? These engines on these rats, you can't have that. This has to come off and a new one put on. The pivot head here has to be able to take it off and put a new one on. The cable has to be taken off and put a new one on. And it has to be able to be done when you're 30 million miles from Earth. So you don't need, you don't need Apple, you don't need Microsoft, and you don't need United States corporation monopoly stuff, okay? This also applies to your farming and stuff. You do not need Monsanto's GMO, non-reproductive food crop grain where you have to keep going back to Monsanto to buy from. Why? Because when you got all of those satellites up there, and you're all doing your own thing, and you're all working and doing and making food and stuff like that, and the systems on Earth totally collapse, Monsanto's not going to be able to sell you any more seeds because they can't produce anything. They are no longer in business. Okay? If you have heritage seeds, okay, say I got 10 different heritage tomato seeds in my hand from and I've got a small pile of each, and I can plant a bunch of each, and I can produce new seeds from those. I can also crossbreed them and produce new breeds. Okay? You need that available to you, because if you are out in the middle of one, in 100 miles from any of your neighbors, and this is going to apply, where's my notes here, the idea that that you need to upgrade and repair stuff. If something happens to the satellite that you're on, okay, and you have to wait for an entire computer system to lock everything down, you're probably going to end up losing a lot of people. On the other hand, if you have, the whole entire compartmentalized, and one of those 12,000 mile a second micrometeorites go slicing through your satellite, and you can literally shut down room by room by room as it goes through, either hitting a button on the wall, or as soon as the air pressure starts dropping, that room seals. Yeah, you actually have a chance to have survival all the time. You are not like the International Space Station up there, where the headlines one person put up about the leak that they now currently have, they're trying to stuff rags in it. Think about how long 35 years is, and NASA has never allowed any kind of workstation, workshop, work tools to go up there so that they have a way to repair and save their own lives. Yeah, that's what's called control, right? The military wants total control, therefore you have to come to them for every bit and piece and part that you're going to use on the International Space Station, or you have to talk to one of those other countries and companies and stuff like that. Very illogical. You have milliseconds to think about saving your life when you're in space, and you need every one of those rooms to also have a manual override. And the best example I can give of that is think back to 2001, Space Odyssey. Hal has shut down the thing, and the poor guy's outside outside the spaceship in the little pod there, and he doesn't have his helmet, and he's trying to get back into the ship to take care of things. And Hal says, no, you're not coming in. So he gets rid of the buddy there, the other guy that was on the ship that Hal killed, and he spins the thing around. He opens the hatch to go in there, manually overrides it and opens it up. Then he spins his little pod around, he blows the door, and he goes through space, and literally in a zero atmosphere situation, he goes in and he does something to rescue himself. Now, whether or not that is possible to do, I'll wait until somebody actually tries it, or I'll wait until I'm actually in a position where I need to try it, okay, before I say whether or not it works. But I would rather have that option of doing that than be sitting there and just going, okay, Hal, you're in charge, I'll just sit here and wait until my air runs out and die. Yeah, I want to be able to override anything, work on anything, change anything, do anything. Because that's the same logic you have as a solo sailor. You got to be able to jury-rig and get yourself back to safety. So we do not want military paranoia as the rule. We want the opposite. We want freedom. We want independence. We want people thinking. That's what you got there. Freedom, independence, and thinking go together. We want people being able to think. We want you to teach your children how to use these things. We want them to understand what a little putty patch is when you got something happening and losing air, and you hear that whistling, and you go, stick some patch on it or something. Okay, you need to think about where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish. So that's why you want to use thinking abilities. You do not want the automation that corporations and corporation schooling, especially in America right now, where everybody answers the right way. I mean, to me, that's still one of the reasons they came out with new math, was so they could absolutely befuddle all the parents into not understanding that the children were being taught to be stupid, telling them that you are wrong if you do it any way other than what the school wants you to use, the formula we want you to use. No, actually, you're smart if you can translate their formula into something you can understand and put it on the board. You are dumb if all you can do is memorize and repeat what they tell you to do. And I was quite amused when the schools that my son were going to would actually spend a week of practicing the tests that they would take at the end of the week so that their numbers were very nice. Yes. But anyway, you got all that stuff to worry about. So we need to get a workshop up there in a big hurry, and we need to be thinking about how to keep things repairable in emergencies. Okay? So, yes, keep thinking.